Education meeting of January 11th, 2022 is called to order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of agenda in order of priority. Are there any items board members would like to add or delete from the agenda? President Albrecht.
I would like to make a motion to add to the agenda discussion and action on a resolution on teacher shortage.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Dr. Pritchett, a second. If we could take a roll call vote on this. Remember, this is not on the merits of this resolution or any other resolution. We are simply agenda setting. This is for the purpose of putting it on the agenda or not. Marilyn, if you could have a roll call vote, please.
Lipton. Here.
Oh.
McMillan.
Excuse me. It's a vote
yes
on
no.
placing teacher shortage on the agenda.
Yes. McMillan.
For discussion, yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Pugh.
Yes.
Snyder.
Yes.
Strayhorn.
Yes.
Tilley.
Yes.
Albrecht.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, very good. Are there any other resolutions that board members would like to add to the agenda? Dr. Pugh.
I would like to add resolution on teaching comprehensive history.
There is a motion on the table from Dr. Pugh. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second from Ms. Lipton. Roll call vote, please. Marilyn.
Lipton. Yes. McMillan.
No.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Pugh.
Yes.
Snyder.
No.
Strayhorn.
Yes.
Tilley.
Yes.
Albrecht.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Are there any other additions recommended for the agenda? There's another motion. Yes, Dr. Pugh.
Layered public health approach to keeping schools open during pandemic.
So there is a motion to put on the floor a layered public health approach to the pandemic. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Ms. Lipton. Marilyn, if you could do a roll call vote, please.
Lipton. Yes. McMillan.
No.
Pritchett. Yes. Pugh.
Yes.
Snyder.
No.
Strayhorn.
Yes.
Tilley.
Yes.
Albrecht.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And are there any other additions or other changes to the agenda to be proposed? President Albrecht.
Given the fact that I think we're going to spend a lot of time on resolutions today, I would like to propose that we table discussion items D and E, the presentation on Michigan's top 10 strategic education plan and the educational updates related to COVID-19, as well as the report of the Teacher of the Year.
Okay. And just for clarification's sake, our Michigan Teacher of the Year, Leah Porter, our Regional Teacher of the Year, Mr. Brian Paul, have graciously agreed, in the interest of time, given the expectation that we have around these resolutions, to agree to come back in February and present. So all in favor? I'm sorry, we have a motion on the table from the President. Do we have a second?
Second.
The second from Dr. Pritchett. If we could have a vote, Marilyn,
Discussion?
please. Discussion, please. Sure.
Okay, I mean, I was unaware of this. I'd appreciate it if, well, I guess the COVID update, it seems like that would be, I mean, unless people are realizing, as most scientists are now freely admitting, Omicron is less harmful than the flu, likely. So maybe it's not as important to have the update on COVID. I don't know. If it is important, I would assume that you would want to have it. So I guess this just means that it's not all that important anymore.
This is, just for clarification's sake, this is about whether items are on or not on the agenda today. Given the amount of time we believe that we're going to spend on the resolutions, we think that there's a value to tabling these. We also believe that there will be substantial conversation about COVID-19 during the public health resolution conversation. Marilyn, if you could take the vote, please.
I'm sorry, I would
Yes,
like to
please.
comment.
I'm sorry, yes.
As far as it relates to setting an agenda, I mean, I'm kind of also questioning just the bringing forth of these resolutions in the way that we have. Only one of the resolutions relates to legislation that's being considered in the Senate and the House. That should be voted on and voted out of committee, the legislative committee.
Mhm.
We have an agenda setting committee. Those other two resolutions should be addressed through the agenda committee. I'm not quite sure. I'm just going to throw it out there that all of this that's happening right now is a reflection of not using process the way we typically do. So
Okay. The board has the right to put resolutions on the agenda, has agreed to consider resolutions that were distributed more than 24 hours in advance. Each of these three resolutions was distributed more than 24 hours in advance. All three of these ideas were discussed at the legislative committee and in multiple legislative committee meetings. There's nothing out of order regarding the placement of any of these resolutions on the agenda. Dr. Pugh.
I just wanted to add, just for the listening audience, that if we were voting, I understand that if we vote in either of those committee meetings, we would most likely be outside of the Open Meetings Act.
The legislative committee considers different issues and often recommends a given direction to the full board. That's different from whether it votes on specific language of a resolution. So I agree with you in that regard. Marilyn, if we could take a roll call vote regarding the tabling of items put forward by Dr. Ulbrich, seconded by Dr. Pritchett.
Lipton.
Yes.
McMillan.
No.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Pugh.
Yes.
Snyder.
no.
Strayhorn.
Yes.
Tilly.
Yes.
Albridge.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, very good. And now a vote, board, on the full agenda as amended. Marilyn, if we could have a motion, please.
Lipton.
If we could have a
no,
motion
no.
first.
No, yeah, I can't remember if we moved it or
Motion, no,
not.
you don't, my error.
Motion on the full agenda as amended, please.
So moved.
Dr. Pritchett. If we could have a second, please.
Second.
Second by Mr. Strayhorn. If we could have a roll call vote, please.
Now we go. Lipton.
Yes.
McMillan.
No.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Pugh.
Yes.
Snyder.
No.
Strayhorn.
Yes.
Tilly.
Yes.
Albridge.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Very good. Thank you very much. Marilyn, if you would be kind enough to introduce our members of the State Board of Education at this time.
Happy to do so. You've just been listening to Dr. Michael Rice. He's the state superintendent and chairperson of the board. As we go around the table to his left, seated at the table, all board members present today, by the way, and it's Dr. Cassandra Albridge. She's president of the board from Dearborn. To her left, Dr. Pamela Pugh, vice president from Saginaw. Ms. Tiffany Tilly is seated up above to Dr. Rice's left. She's secretary from West Bloomfield. Ms. Nikki Snyder, back at the board table, seated here, has been at the board table. She's a SB Legislative Committee member. She resides in Dexter. And next to her is Ms. Leah Porter, the 2021-22 Michigan Teacher of the Year. She's a third grade teacher at Wilcox Elementary School and Holt Public Schools. The governor's representative, who's joining us virtually today, is Ms. Angela Benander. She's with the Governor's Office of Public Affairs. That's an ex officio non-voting seat. And then back to the table, Dr. Judith Pritchett, the board's association delegate, National Association of State Boards of Education, and SBE Legislative Committee member from Washington Township. Next to her, Mr. Jason Strayhorn, SBE Legislative Committee member from Novi. Next to Mr. Strayhorn, Mr. Tom McMillan, treasurer from Oakland Township. And is standing in the doorway over here, also in the room, Ms. Ellen Kojan Lipton, chair of the SB Legislative Committee from Huntington Woods. Thank you.
Public may provide public comments during the public participation portion of the meeting at approximately 1 p.m. Public comments will be accepted from those in person and online who register before 1 p.m. today. If you wish to offer public comment online during the meeting, send an email to schneiderm@michigan.gov. Provide your name, city, and telephone number from which you will be calling. You will receive an email with the call-in number and conference ID. To provide public comment in person, please complete a public comment form when you arrive here at the meeting location. These instructions are listed on the MDE webpage at www.michigan.gov/MDE. The next item is adoption of resolution honoring Carla Whitsett as the 2021 Michigan Education Support Staff Professional of the Year. Congratulations to Ms. Carla Whitsett, paraeducator at Achieving College and Career Education in Ypsilanti Public Schools, who was named the 2021 Michigan Education Support Staff Professional of the Year on November 4th, 2021. Michigan Department of Education staff will share more about Ms. Whitsett and the award. Presenters today are Dr. Delsa Chapman, Deputy Superintendent of Educator, Student, and School Supports, Ms. Jennifer Roble, Manager of the Recruitment and Recognition Unit in the Office of Educator Excellence. May I please have a motion to adopt the resolution honoring Ms. Carla Whitsett as the 2021 Michigan Education Support Staff Professional of the Year?
So moved.
Moved by President Albrecht, seconded by? Seconded by Ms. Tilley. Any discussion associated therewith? Okay, yeah, please.
If we could just offer our congratulations and our thank you for all that you do for students in Michigan and how much we appreciate it. We're very proud of you.
Very good. Let's do the presentation and then vote. Create a little bit of suspense. I beg your pardon. I'm being overruled by Ms. Schneider. Let's vote so that we get the resolution signed for Ms. Whitsett. There you go. Marilyn, if we could have a roll call vote.
Lipton.
Yes.
McMillan.
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes.
Pugh.
Yes.
Snyder.
Yes.
Strayhorn.
Yes.
Tilly.
Yes.
Albrecht.
Yes.
Unanimous approval.
Very good. All right, and now, Ms. Roble, if we could, the presentation. Thank you.
Dr. Rice and board members. It's great to see everybody here today, too. When Ms. Whitsett walks up, please check out her shoes because they're quite fierce. The Education Support Staff Professional of the Year is in its third year here at the MDE. We revised it about 3 years ago. This year, the MDE received 100 nominations of exceptional education support staff professionals. These support staff professionals were recognized for the effective work in and out of the classroom, in the buildings, in the district, and more importantly, in the community that they live. The 2021 Education Support Staff Professional of the Year is Ms. Carla Whitsett. Ms. Whitsett is a paraprofessional at Achieving College and Career Education, ACE High School in Ypsilanti. Carla is a paraeducator who has more than 20 years of service in Ypsilanti and other area districts. In her nomination by Ms. Diop, who is here today, she was described as someone who does this job out of genuine love, care, and belief that every child deserves to have educators who look like them, who believe them, who serve them, and who care about their well-being and success. Her dedication to her position within the community goes beyond ensuring that all her students have a positive experience. She checks in with school staff every day to make sure that she's lending a hand where needed. And Ms. Whitsett has been described as an exemplary teammate who works with other school staff for the betterment of students and their families, colleagues in the district. Also, before we watch the slideshow, I do want to mention that Ms. Whitsett is going back to school to get her bachelor's in order to become a social worker, correct? So let's watch the announcement. Dr. Rice, we also have Ms. Vereen from ACE here live with two students, and Ms. Vereen is a behavioral specialist who has volunteered her time this morning to help with the students. Ms. Vereen, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay. Is Kenya or Tanaja available?
We have Kenya and Tanisha available right here today. I want to say congratulations one more time to Ms. Carla Whitsett, and here is Kenya with a little tribute to you.
How y'all doing today? Okay, I'm gonna start with if encouraging was a person, it would be Miss Carla Whitsett. I've been here for at least 3 years of ACE program. I am now a senior pushing to graduate. I never met a woman in Michigan school district that knows how to communicate with children like she does. She pushed me past limits I feel to be as a student, but as a child, she has shown me a lot. As much as students improve here, as well did Miss Whitsett. I'm proud y'all finally see the improvement she has made. Thank you, Miss Whitsett.
Thank you, Kenya. That was beautiful. Next up, we have Tanisha.
Hi, I'm Tanisha, and I want to say thank you, Miss Whitsett, for reaching deep into me to find all that I can be before I can see it myself. You never gave up on me or others. I may be an average student for you. I may be the same student you know, but for me, you will always be in my heart. You, you are my most favorite person. C is for caring. A is for acknowledging. R is for respectful. L is for loving. C is for advice. Thank you, Miss Was. Thank you for everything, Miss Wasette, and I love you.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Vereen.
Absolutely.
Okay, now for the talks. First, I want to say, Dr. Rice and board members, I've been in a lot of schools making announcements like this and filming Proud Michigan Educator videos, and I've never, and my staff has said it, that we've never felt as welcomed as we did walking in to Dr. Hugin's building. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that as well. So today we have Dr. Chelsea Harris-Hugin, who is the principal of ACE, and she is here to receive the plaque from Dr. Rice honoring Carla that she can hang in her building. So Dr. Rice, if you can come and present the plaque. Then we also have the resolution and the certificate, if you'd like to present those to Carla.
Okay, there we go.
Picture, Dr. Rice picture.
Yep.
I'm smiling under my
Dr. Rice and board members, I would like to now introduce you to the 21 Education Support Staff Professional of the Year, Ms. Carla Whitsett.
No, you should be in the middle. Come on.
Thank you so much.
We don't let you get away with
Thank you.
Carla, would you like to say a few words? Or?
Yeah. First, I would like to give thanks to the Michigan Department of Education, the State Board. It's truly an honor to be here right now. I'm super excited. When they first surprised me, I was in the midst of handling a student. He had got detained. something that happened over the weekend. And I wasn't even thinking about the award because I was too busy trying to find out what was going on with my student. I truly love kids. I know I'm good at what I do because I form relationships with kids, parents, and people in my community. I would like to give a special thanks to Ms. Lauren right here. She was the one that nominated me. When I read what she nominated me, I said, that's me. I said, you're a good writer. Most of all, I am really truly blessed to be working with our students, and I love to see them being successful. I know that right now in our community, it's a need for services because of the pandemic. A lot of our kids is dealing with depression and things that's going on, and so I'm out here in it to give them what they need. I'm taking my $1,000 and I'm starting a nonprofit program called Better Than Youth, and I'm going to give all the kids the support and help they need. Thank you.
And lastly, I'd just like to say thank you to Dr. Chapman. She was a rock star walking in there. She was graceful and professional, and she knocked it out of the park for her first time working with me. So I think you're better than Kyle. So. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Thank you very much.
Very much. Well, the next item on the Committee of the Whole agenda is presentation on teacher recruitment and retention to address teacher shortage. Goal 7 of the Michigan's Top 10 Strategic Education Plan is to increase the numbers of certified teachers in areas of shortage. This is a presentation on current legislation proposed to address teacher shortages, programs that the Michigan Department of Education is implementing, and recommendations to improve the recruitment and retention of Michigan teachers. This is an informational meeting, or presentation rather. No board action is required. There is a resolution associated therewith, which we will consider immediately thereafter. This is a presentation done by 2 people in person and 2 people virtually. Welcome to our new world. Dr. Tanisha Chapman, backed by popular demand, our Deputy Superintendent of Educator, Student, and School Supports. Ms. Leah Breen, Director of the Office of Educator Excellence, who is appearing remotely this morning. Dr. Sarah Kate Levon, Assistant Director of the Office of Educator Excellence, and Dr. Cheryl Kennedy, Legislative Liaison in the Office of Public and Governmental Affairs. Dr. Chapman and Dr. Kennedy are here in person. Ms. Breen and Dr. Levan are at a distance or are remote. Gentle people, welcome. We're interested in your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Rice. And at this time, we will go right to Director Breen, who will share her screen and the presentation that we're presenting before you today.
Good morning. Thank you. Can you see my presentation and hear me okay?
Good.
Perfect. I love it when everything works like it's supposed to. Okay. So the first part of this presentation is just a very quick recap of things you have seen and heard before to orient us all to the same place. The first is to look at Goal 7, increase the numbers of certified teachers in the area of shortage. That's the primary focus of the information we're about to share today. In the past, we've talked about why there is an educator shortage, noting that this is not unique to Michigan, that there is a nationwide shortage of teachers, but there are things that have happened in Michigan that impact Michigan's educator shortage. Specifically, we're ranked 50 out of 50 states in total education revenue growth, inflation adjusted from 1995 to 2015. There was a decrease in funding in 2011 of $470 per student, which resulted in freezes, reductions, layoffs. Educators have been mandated to pay a greater share of health, insurance, and retirement costs. And the state mandate for annual evaluation, which was incurred in 2009 and then amended in 2011, that includes things like student growth data, imposition of state tests, et cetera, et cetera. So to take a look at the MDE initiatives that are in place to support the educator workforce and attempt to reduce the shortage and increase recruitment of teachers, we have the Welcome Back Proud Michigan Educator campaign, which you have heard of. The latest statistics on this campaign are 373 districts are now participating in the campaign. 2,465 educators have shared their contact information to be contacted for purposes of employment, and 210 class teachers have re-entered the classroom either with full certification or temporary permits while they attain their certification. So that's excellent news. We have, of course, started some Grow Your Own programs. The first is the middle school and high school program that we call the Explore program. We were able to issue $1.1 million in grants last year for planning programs to implement these programs. Those were incurred by 44 districts and 80 buildings, and it include 28 pilot programs that began last year with the remainder kicking off in 22 and 23. Also very exciting news. We have approved 2 new alternative route preparation providers. Those are intended to decrease regional shortages as well as increase the diversity of our teacher candidates, which is an important element of Goal 7 as well. Those 2 programs, as a reminder, are Detroit Public Schools Community District DPSCD On the Rise Academy. The last time that we received information, they have 55 teacher candidates enrolled in their program, and the New Paradigm for Education's program, which has 13 teacher candidates in their first cohort. We also recruit teachers from out of state. 31% of our applicants on average last year were completed out-of-state preparation programs. Those do include online programs. Those individuals may be living in Michigan but taking an out-of-state preparation program. As you can see here, that the numbers are good for initial certification overall, which is also good news. You have also seen this slide before, teacher preparation enrollment. Back in 2013 and 14, we had enrollment of about 23,000 teachers. That dipped to a low in 2016-17 of about 9,500 teachers, and we have seen an increase, which is great news. 1920, which is our most recent data set, we're looking at about 12,000 teachers. We believe this is evidence that some of our initiatives are working, albeit not quickly enough to satisfy the needs of the field. Certification flexibilities. These are a little bit newer. So as a reminder, late last year, we created an opportunity for districts to increase the number of certified teachers in special education by providing some flexibility around placement. As of December, 20 districts have applied for those waivers for flexible placements, and 28 teachers have been able to utilize that to be placed more flexibly within districts, providing some relief. We are also working on temporary approvals for school social workers to allow them to serve while completing their coursework under supervision. It's an expansion of our school social worker program. So we have issued 35 temporary approvals in addition to the 200 temporary approvals that we typically issue with this new flexibility. Again, small increments, but positive news for districts taking advantage of these opportunities. And with that, I'll turn it over to Cheryl, who will talk about recent legislative actions.
Thank you, Director Breen. It is not a surprise that if you speak to anyone in the field, there is a concern about teacher shortage. And that is no different for our current legislators. In the past budget cycle, we received $1.6 million for some grants, Grow Your Own programs. And in the last supplemental, there was a $10 million appropriation to address teacher recruitment efforts. Also, just recently, Public Act 149, which was represented by Rep. Paquette and signed by the governor, is a short-term, very short-term suggestion to allow current school staff to step in an emergency basis to cover a classroom. This could be anyone who is currently employed by the school. There are some requirements regarding background check and salary, but again, this is an attempt to address the immediate need of teachers in the classroom. Currently, the Department of Education is working with a Senate sponsor to make the out-of-state reciprocity much easier with fewer hoops to jump through. As you could see by Director Breen's part of the presentation, this is an area that we see as a strength. Soon the bill, we hope, will be introduced. It is currently in the drafting process. As I mentioned earlier, there is no question that our legislature understands that this is an issue. Currently, there have been several bills introduced that address educator evaluation, substitute teaching, teacher loan forgiveness, and paraprofessional tuition, all in an attempt to minimize the gap between the current teachers in the pipeline and our current need. However, to this date, there remains no significant funding for educator recruitment or retention to address Michigan's significant teacher shortage. This is something that needs to be addressed immediately. If we wait for the next budget cycle, we will not have an opportunity to influence until the following year. So we need the legislature to act. Spring is only 68 days away. We would like to see a significant funding supplemental before that time. And now I'm handing it back to Director Breen.
Thank you very much. Recently, the Department of Education sent a letter to the legislature for a call to action with a request for $300 to $500 million over the next 5 years to address the educator shortage. The initiatives included in that request included tuition reimbursement for current college students and support staff members who aspire to become teachers, student loan repayment for recently certified college graduates who commit to careers in education, and for current teachers who are working to pay off college. Grants to districts for Grow Your Own programs that encourage support staff to become teachers. Grants to districts or directly to teacher candidates for paid teacher internships to offset loss of earnings by candidates, and stipends for student teachers to relocate and pay for housing in high-need school districts for up to 1 year. Grants to educator preparation providers to expand the Welcome Back Proud Michigan Educator campaign to phase 3. This campaign would offset the cost necessary to review transcripts and provide support for individuals who completed programs or almost completed programs and yet never attained certification to help them across the finish line. Reimbursement for teacher certification transfer and testing fees. So this supports the reciprocity legislation that is proposed. So we would make it easier for them to attain Michigan certification and pay the fees necessary to attain certification. Grants to districts to support growth of the high school Explore programs we talked about earlier that inspires interest in teaching, and scholarships for high school seniors who aspire to and commit to a career in teaching, who are successful graduates of this program. We would like to revive and strengthen the teacher preparation pipeline in the Upper Peninsula and Northern Lower Peninsula. We know that it is sometimes hard to access, and we'd like to provide additional pathways for individuals seeking certification in those areas of our state. Expand eligibility for child care reimbursement for individuals enrolled in teacher preparation programs. This is especially important for career changers who aspire to go to school full-time in order to attain their certification more quickly. Grants to educator preparation programs or districts to help prepare teacher candidates for the MTT test for teacher certification. We know we have individuals that perhaps have been out of the field for some time, or again, career changers that are switching programs that may struggle a little bit with the test for teacher certification, and we want to make sure that they have the resources they need to be successful. Grants to districts to offer access to specified mental health services for teachers. We know that teachers are struggling. We would like to help retain them in the field by providing them the supports that they need to be successful. Tuition reimbursement for the reading course requirement that teachers need to move to their professional teaching certification. And last but not least, some funding for program evaluation so we can collect data and analyze effectiveness of programs in order to demonstrate that they are effective in implementation. And with that, I will turn it over for questions.
Thank you. Thank you to our presenters. Board members, any questions or comments of our presenters? Mr. McMillan.
You know, the slide that says, why is there an educator shortage? One of the bullet points is educators were mandated to pay a greater share of health insurance and retirement costs. I was actually the lead legislator from the House on this topic when it passed. And by the way, my staffer at the time that helped me, not my staffer, but the one that was assigned to me was Elizabeth Hertel, who is now the governor's health director. She was my staffer on this. And it's clear that many educators actually got a reduction in costs for their health insurance. It allowed more flexibility. There had been a lot of Cadillac plans, a lot of overinsurance that had been going on, and so it gave a lot more flexibility. So just wanted to point that out, that that's actually incorrect. And as we've talked in the past, you know, there's some bullet points missing here, like the politicization of the teaching profession through things like CRT and the tenants that is being incorporated into the curriculum and into being instructed to add. So this plus SEL, they're being told that they need to be kind of armchair psychiatrists now. And these are just things that we hear from the profession, that this isn't what they signed up for, and they're leaving because of that. We also know that, you know, a vax mandate, which I guess we're going to vote on later today, would certainly cause 15 to 25% probably of teachers to leave if we look at like the medical profession and how many were fired or left. So, you know, there's clearly, this is clearly not the whole picture. There are things that the state has done with the response, the bad government policies with the response to COVID that has caused other teachers to leave the profession. So, I mean, I think that there's a lot more to it than money. Just give us more money. That's kind of the mantra. And by the way, administrative costs and overhead costs for districts are through the roof. It's outrageous how much money is being siphoned out of this classroom and into overhead and superintendents and assistant superintendents and deputy superintendents and all the staff that is overhead and not in the classroom. So I'm sure they could find easily $300 to $500 million if they would just focus on the classroom.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McMillan. Other board members, questions or comments related to the presentation?
Are we discussing the resolution?
It's not the resolution at the moment. It's the presentation initially and then the resolution subsequently, yes.
I have
Ms. Tilley, yes, please.
How will people that are interested in the program be able to find out information about it? Will it be just through the district, or will MDE have a website or some type of, you know, how will people find out about it?
So our recommendations are just that. They are recommendations to the legislature. The legislature needs to act on those recommendations depending upon how it does, what the legislature approves. We'll set up structures accordingly. But those will be dependent upon legislative action. They will be a function of what the legislature approves and how it approves.
So if the legislature does approve it, will it be on a district level? Will it be MDE? Will it be in concert?
Yeah, again, it depends upon the form or forms in which the legislature would approve any or all of these measures.
Okay.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
Alan?
I'm sorry? Ms. Lipton.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Breen. I think that you did an excellent job of really painting the complexity of the problem. First, I would like to say that although it is a convenient talking point to say that it's not about the money. It actually really is all about the money. I think that we've seen data that when past administrations took the unprecedented step of cutting nearly $500 per pupil cuts to our state aid fund, the likes of the cuts that the state had never seen in the history of the school aid fund. I think it's pretty clear that you can track the exit from the field and the decline in education in the state. And so those of us that have been in the space for a long time do understand that the deprofessionalization of the profession, as well as the drastic pay cuts that teachers have had to face, have been increasingly significant on the ability of people to flock to a profession that really is one of the greatest professions that someone can get into. Having said that, we do recognize that these types of trend lines that we're seeing in Michigan are also national in nature. And so my question to Dr. Breen is, are there any efforts to look at successful, rapidly successful teacher recruitment programs that have been implemented in other states that we can look to in order to follow, if you will, because there is a long-term strategy, I do believe, but there's also an immediate strategy. And I'm just curious as to if there are other models in other states, being that I believe that there's going to be sort of a national scramble for teachers.
Ms. Breen, your thoughts?
Yes. So I'm lucky to have the opportunity to serve on the board of the national state directors that essentially perform my function in the 50 states as well as territories and Canada and some other places. And we routinely meet, obviously, to discuss this crisis. I will tell you that there are states that are implementing things that we have discarded, and we are trying things that they've already tried and found unsuccessful. So pretty much we're all turning around the same ideas. The places where they have seen success are with significant investment. So places like California, where the legislator appropriated tens of millions of dollars to incorporate teacher residency programs, saw significant increases in both recruitment and retention of teachers because they were supported appropriately.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lipton. Thank you, Ms. Breen. Other questions or comments from board members before we get to the resolution? Dr. Pugh.
Yeah, first, I'm always big on, since this is an education board, correcting misinformation. I don't know, and maybe I'm unaware that we're voting on a vaccination mandate today. So I just want to bring clarity to that and the listeners and those who are in the audience. I don't know of a vax mandate in a resolution that we will be voting on today. The other piece that I want to bring about, and we can't not discuss it at this time, is the health and safety of teachers. That's like everywhere, that conversation.
Sorry, Dr. Pugh, could you repeat that last sentence, please?
I don't understand how we not talk about the health and safety of educators as we talk about this. And let me go back, because I do appreciate all of the work and effort that has been going into the presentations and the data that has been brought about. And we do know that teacher salary needs to be addressed. We do know that teachers took some heavy cuts in past years. And so that does need to be addressed. But now this whole issue of health and safety of teachers, and we can't ignore that, because we do have teachers that are leaving the profession to the point where now we're allowing subs to come in that can be the lunch person to the bus driver. And so we know that part of our issue here is teachers making sure that they feel that their health is going to be protected in this pandemic or any other time, that their voice is going to be listened to, but not only their health, but the health of their children. And so I do want to continue to bring that up. So as we consider this conversation here, I don't see it decoupled from conversations related to how do we keep our buildings and schools safe. And I know we will be talking about a resolution on how to do that, but I don't see how we decouple those things as far as keeping and retaining teachers.
Fair enough. I think the physical and mental health of staff members are hugely important in this equation about recruitment and retention. There's no question about that. Thank you. Ms. Snyder.
Several things. We are voting on a vaccine mandate today. In the layered healthcare approach, which is really a resolution on medical mandates for schools and staff, and soon will be for students, it directly reflects the language in the federal vaccine mandate. So we can take out vaccine mandate from that last whereas, or maybe it's the second to last whereas paragraph that's in that resolution. And I understand that in our legislative committee, when we addressed the resolution, it was clear that we're not all hands on deck about vaccine mandates, but the language still reflects the federal vaccine mandate. So we're going to call it what it is, even if we don't give it the specific verbiage or title that it is. The second thing, I'll speak to Tom's politicization of this particular resolution and issue. And the reason why I'm willing to speak to that is because I really do think that if we are going to come together and acknowledge this issue for what it is, give it what it needs, we cannot politicize what it came to be, if you will. So I think we do need to consider the concept of inflation, certain issues that are baked into this next resolution and what we're discussing here today. First of all, don't address anything that this board has any authority over. And it's certainly up for debate and disagreement in terms of whether or not we agree on what has led to this, right? So if you talk about inflation and the concept of those per pupil cuts, yes, they did happen. Nobody's going to deny that. But we also have to consider the decrease in enrollment that happened during this time frame, all related to federal policies that we didn't have control over. There was a gift to the state of Michigan when we changed the way we did free trade with Canada and Mexico. It hit our manufacturing industry significantly. It hit our job sources significantly. Families left Michigan in droves due to that policy. That was a gift of President Clinton to our state. And then later on, increases in health care was a gift to our country from President Obama through highly regulatory healthcare practices we had never seen before. So now we're going to say, look at what that has done to us, and we're going to talk to each other in a blame-oriented, accusatory way on an issue we need to find unity in. We can't do that when we act this way and we present resolutions in this politicized manner. I will leave that there. I would also like to ask, did we vote on when we added these resolutions to the agenda where they would be placed within our agenda?
Given the need to juggle, we did not vote. There's going to be some flexibility associated with that, a flexibility, I might add, for which there's precedent in past meetings. So we will be putting these on the agenda as we are able to accommodate them. Yes. Other board members on the presentation before we pivot to the resolution? Hearing none?
I have one more.
Yes, please.
I have to say, this idea of heavy cuts, I was in the legislature. We were trying to pick up the pieces after 8 years of Granholm and Democrat policies. The average citizen incurred much heavier cuts in their salaries. The ones that teachers and those in government jobs was a lot lighter. We were 50th out of 50 in our economy in many ways post Granholm, and so I think a little perspective is important. It didn't seem like certain party cared much about the average citizen as much as the government citizen or the government worker in those times. And we saw van after van, moving vans leaving the state. And as Board Member Snyder said, we've seen a lot of people exiting the public schools lately through homeschooling and private schooling because of the horrible COVID policies. So, you know, I think that, and the feds are dumping tons of money on the state, and yet they just want more and more. It's just a mantra that I think the average citizen is getting really tired of. Spend the money more wisely, and try to, and don't keep fighting parents. I think things would go better for you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Dr. Pritchett.
Thank you. Speaking to the presentation, I appreciate the work that the department has done in, I'm going to use a trite term here, in brainstorming and researching those programs and initiatives that we believe, at least at this point, would help the teacher shortage. However we got here, we have a teacher shortage. We have a teacher shortage across the country. Most specifically, we're concerned here about Michigan. We experience it anytime we talk to school personnel. I'm sure Leah and Brian could speak to it very well because they're in schools every day. So I do appreciate that. My question is, not that I'm expecting anything else is going to become, something, oh, gee, we hadn't thought of that. But in case something does, my assumption is there's flexibility within the department, and I realize it's tied to the legislature right now, where possibly one program might be looked at and said, you know what, this is just not going the way we expected it to. However, we at this point believe that if we did X, Y, or Z, we might be able to alleviate some of the problem. So I'm just questioning, we're not necessarily tied to each one of these, though I'm not saying that each one of them isn't good thinking, good research.
So the recommendation is a menu of recruitment and retention ideas. It is meant to give the legislature a lot of room for reflection. We've noted a range, $300 to $500 million over 5 years. We've noted a range of ideas. We are actively sharing those ideas now with state legislators, and we'll continue to share ideas with state legislators until the state legislature begins to address this very, very challenging problem. The reality is that we have a profound teacher shortage across the state, and that in its legislative actions, the legislature helped create that. And in its legislative actions, the legislature can help rebuild the profession. And it's in the spirit of helping to rebuild the profession that we put forward this menu of recommendations for the consideration of the legislature. We have many legislators on both sides of the aisle that are concerned with the profession and that are very, very actively reflecting upon these ideas. Ms. Snyder.
I appreciate what Judy had to say, and I understand what you're saying. It's in that spirit, so I'll be making some amendments to the motion, which has not been on the table yet, right?
Right.
To address the resolution, and I will save further comment for that as well.
Very good. If we could, if there are no other questions or comments regarding the presentation, if we could have a motion to move the resolution on Michigan's teacher shortage.
So moved.
Moved by President Albrecht,
Second.
seconded by Dr. Pritchett. Discussion associated therewith. Actually, if we could read that into the record, please, for the listening audience.
Resolution on Michigan's teacher shortage. Whereas the teacher shortage is a major issue facing Michigan schools and school children, and in many cases, schools and school children across the country. Whereas the teacher shortage has been exacerbated by certain state legislative actions over many years, including but not limited to last in the nation inflation-adjusted total revenue growth between 1995 and 2015, which resulted in inadequate staff compensation and insufficient numbers of staff members. The mandating that educators pay a greater share of their health insurance and retirement costs, and the mandating of annual evaluations requiring the use of student growth data, including standardized state tests and evaluations. Whereas the state legislature now has the opportunity and responsibility to help rebuild the teaching profession by enacting laws and appropriating funds associated therewith. Whereas the Michigan Department of Education has provided the legislature with a menu of strategic investment options to respond to the teacher shortage that include grow your own programs for students and support staff to become teachers, scholarships for high school seniors who aspire to and commit to careers in teaching, tuition reimbursement, and a teacher internship stipend for current college students who make a commitment to pursue teaching. Loan repayment for recently certified college graduates who commit to careers in education, and for current teachers who are working to pay off college loans. Work with stakeholders to develop programs that will help strengthen the teacher preparation pipeline in the Upper Peninsula and Northern Lower Peninsula, which face particular geographic challenges in the preparation of teacher candidates. Support for improved mentoring of new teachers to help retain quality teachers in Michigan, and the easing of restrictions on accepting teacher licenses from other states to help recruit quality teachers to Michigan. Whereas an investment of $300 million to $500 million over 5 years is necessary to increase the recruitment and retention of high-quality educators from diverse backgrounds, revitalize the profession through support for thousands of teachers and teacher candidates, and provide a sustained investment in these initiatives to ensure that the demand for high-quality educators to serve all of Michigan's children would be met more enduringly. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the State Board of Education strongly supports the recruitment and retention recommendations that MDE has put forth to the state legislature to help strengthen Michigan's teaching profession.
Thank you. President Albridge, is there anything you'd like to add to that? We have had a presentation already on this, but you moved it. Is there anything you'd like to add on it?
I would just say that I understand the desire not to look back to see where we are, how we came here, but there are a lot of things that have happened, and a lot of legislation that has been proposed and passed in this state that has deprofessionalized professionalized the teaching profession, and there have been appropriations decisions made that have also impacted the profession in the state of Michigan as well. I will give you just one anecdotal example, and that is a friend of mine left the profession after 10 years. When he left, after many of the changes made at the state, he was actually bringing home less money than when he started 10 years prior. So these are real impacts on real families. And this is someone who had 2 children and a spouse to take care of and could no longer afford to be an educator in the state of Michigan. These are real issues that people are dealing with. And, you know, I think it is incumbent upon us, if we can help to bring this profession back to where it should be, then we as a board should stand up and say that this is something we need to do. So I'll just leave it at that, and that's it for me.
Very good, thank you. Other board members on the, Ms. Porter.
I just wanted to share that after hearing this and the presentation too, and hearing it read out loud, thank you, Sandra, for that. And teaching in a public school for the last 16 years and spending my entire professional career in public education, this is entirely accurate about what it's been like to be, I would say, in the trenches for the last decade specifically, and watching the resources be stripped away in our buildings, watching us go bare bones in every possible way because of not having the funding, not replacing positions because there was no funding to do that, people absorbing other positions and jobs, and that trickle-down effect has had massive impact. And now we're in the precipice of dealing with the pandemic as well, which is causing the most stressful time in any education. I can't speak for every educator, but I would say in every educator's career is probably the most stressful year that they've ever had. And so when I read this, it gives me hope that we are on the horizon of change, and I appreciate that the board and the Michigan Department of Education are taking this so seriously, because it is a very dire, terrifying circumstance we're in on a daily basis right now in schools.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. Mr. McMillan.
I've got two amendments to the resolution that I prepared. I emailed it to everybody on the board. I didn't know when it was going to come up, if it was going to be after lunch, but I did recently email it to everyone, and so.
Could you distribute?
Yeah,
That'd be
I can
great. Thank you.
distribute. They're short. I mean, I could just make the first one. I mean, it's just a sentence or two long. So at appropriate time, it doesn't have to be now after discussion. Well, let me think. I guess it would be the right. But I'd like to make an amendment.
Please.
Amendment number 1, after the first whereas paragraph, after, quote, children across the country, insert with a separate paragraph, quote, whereas a vaccine mandate as dictated by President Biden's OSHA rules and supported by Democrats on the State Board of Education would likely result in many public school teachers not willing to get the vaccine, and therefore 15 to 25% of current teachers will either retire or quit. This would further exacerbate any teacher shortage.
Okay, let's be clear. This is you're considering, you want the consideration of two amendments separately,
right,
from one another. Beautiful. Okay, so we have a motion on the table from Mr. McMillan. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Ms. Snyder. Discussion on the amendment as offered.
Well, I mean, I had already.
Please, yeah,
yes,
no, please.
Just since it's my amendment. I mean,
Yes.
I've already talked briefly earlier, but you know, if there's concern about the shortage, we have a resolution that's coming up that supports President Biden's OSHA rules. A lot of districts have over 100 employees and would therefore fall under the vaccine mandate, although hopefully it's going to be ruled unconstitutional, but can't count on that. It's really, the intention is clear. And so we're seeing, and I'm hearing plenty of teachers say they're going to leave, they're going to quit, especially given that the vaccine is, I mean, it's not really helpful currently against the Omicron, and the Omicron appears to be nothing worse than a flu, or even not even that bad as far as the case fatality rate goes, from what scientists are saying. So I think that, so if there's a concern about shortage, I wanted to acknowledge that that there's really, you know, no reason to, I mean, the policies that are going to be voted on and supported by many on this board appear to be just further making a problem of teacher shortage.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. We have a second. We're into comment on the amendment as offered. Ms. Snyder.
I would just add support for this amendment. Just in real life, I've heard of a lot of people that are going to quit or are willing to get fired. I know people, first responders, that have been let go of their job because they were not willing to conform and comply with these mandates, and their exemptions were not approved. And that's one of the things that we continue to hear is, oh, but there's exemptions, but there's not. When a state-funded, publicly funded institution can wield those dollars and make those decisions for you and define things like religion, and it gets far stickier in ways that are very unconstitutional. So I would definitely support that. And I'll be completely honest, I am one of the people that have left my job because I'm not willing to do a vaccine mandate. It's one thing for you to strongly encourage it and to be transparent and open about the rigor of the research and the ethics of how that research is carried out, and then give me a choice, and I make the choice that's best for myself, and I encourage everybody else. That's a different environment than the environment that we have happening right now. So you're going to see teachers in an already, after everything we just talked about, you know, regardless of the disagreement and the debate over the politicization of the resolution in terms of what led to this, you see teachers that have already retired, they've already left, teachers who have left because of remote learning, and now there's going to be an added layer as to why they will not dig in and lean into this. And to Tom's further point earlier, the concept of kids coming to school ready to learn is more and more difficult. So I just think we're adding extra to a teacher shortage that we all agree exists. We want to put out a resolution, we want to unify, but we can't do that when we include things like this. And
So
then the other thing,
you're supportive of the amendment as offered?
supportive of the amendment, and I'm still talking.
And that's where we're focused on. We're focused on the amendment.
Correct. We also have another resolution in advance that.
Focused on this amendment, on this resolution.
Correct. And I am going to speak to the fact that we've talked about the pandemic relating to the teacher shortage in the next resolution or one of the other resolutions we're discussing. In the layered health approach to the pandemic, it says that the teacher shortage is due in part to the pandemic. But we don't see that in this resolution. Why? And I would ask board members that are supportive of this resolution and that resolution to speak to how do you find it due in part, number one. And number two, could you meet us in a space and understand that it's not going to just be based on your perspective that it's due in part to the pandemic. There are other perspectives that people will carry and they will respond to this leadership. And if there's already a shortage of teachers, is that what we should be doing at this table, leading in that capacity?
Fair enough. Thank you. President Albridge.
I can answer that question. The person who drafted this resolution and the person who drafted the other resolution are two different people. So they're not going to be the same resolution. They're not going to say the same things. And it shouldn't be a surprise that it doesn't. And there might be a reason for that. So I would ask that we focus on one, and then we can focus on the other. Right now, this is the resolution that's on the table. So if there's particular language you're in addition to what Tom has proposed, if you could share that, that would be great. Or if you're just supporting Tom's, that's fine too.
Can I speak
Please.
to what you're saying? I don't think that it matters who wrote it and that they're different people. If you're going to support this resolution and you're going to support the later resolution,
No
this
one said
amendment
anyone's
speaks to
supporting
that.
anything right now.
Let me finish.
All right, go ahead.
If you support both resolutions, it's worthy considering that our future resolution today says that the teacher shortage is in due part to the pandemic. So I want to ask of the board members that are going to support this resolution, potentially not vote for this amendment, and then later speak to it. What do you think the pandemic is contributing to the teacher shortage? Help me understand. That's all I'm asking. Clarify it, because I know that what Tom is doing in presenting this amendment, the reason why I would support it, and how many Michiganders I really truly believe carry this perspective. We have to consider, why would you support it, this notion that the pandemic is in due part, the teacher shortage is in due part to the pandemic? What does that mean to you? Okay? And can you understand and meet us in a space where there's a lot of other people that have this perspective as well?
Okay, so
Can I speak now?
please.
Okay. We have no idea what's going to happen with the future resolutions. So don't make assumptions that people are supporting one thing and not supporting another, because you don't know what's going to happen, and you don't know who's supporting what. So can we focus on this? And if you have something specific that you want to add to this, regardless of what happens with future resolutions, all I'm asking is to put it on the table.
It is on the table.
Okay.
Let's be clear. We have a motion on the table. It's been seconded. We have an amendment on the table. It has been seconded. This is a conversation about the amendment to the base motion. And if there is no other germane discussion on the amendment to the base motion, if we could have a roll call vote, please, on the amendment.
Lipton,
No.
McMillan?
Yes.
Pritchett,
No.
Pugh,
No.
Snyder,
Yes.
Strayhorn,
No.
Tilly,
No.
Albridge.
No.
Motion fails.
Mr. McMillan, to you on your second amendment,
Thank you,
please.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Rice. Second amendment is after the last whereas paragraph, after, quote, be met more enduringly, end quote, insert with a separate paragraph, quote, whereas the requirement of public school teachers to incorporate the tenets of critical race theory, CRT, and so-called social and emotional learning, SEL, has and will continue to cause current public school teachers to quit or retire because the politicization of CRT and the pseudopsychology of SEL is not what they signed up for when deciding to be a teacher.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. McMillan, a second by Ms. Snyder. Mr. McMillan, to you to talk to the amendment as offered.
I think it speaks for itself.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I continued to hear teachers complain, and I even spoke to at a group this past week, and the things that are going on in kindergarten and in other classrooms that principals are pulling in their kindergarten teachers and saying, you will teach this, and the teachers just, and you will not tell the parents about it, in the Lansing area, by the way, district. It's outrageous, and these teachers are just fed up, and they're looking for other ways to care for kids, which is what they signed up for. They didn't sign up to be deceptive and to, do all this politics.
Okay, thank you. Other board members on the amendment as offered? Other board members on the, I'm sorry, I need to widen my, need to have kind of fly peripheral vision here. Ms. Tilley.
Just want to say for clarity's sake that there was a teacher shortage before the pandemic, not only here in Michigan, nationally. The profession has taken a hit. And there are various reasons why that has happened. I think that the resolution as it stands, as it was written already, is great. I'm excited about it. I hope we can move forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Tilley. Other board members on this, on the amendment to the base resolution? Ms. Snyder.
I just would support it. Again, there's future resolutions that I'll save the discussion for.
Fair enough, thank you. Other board members on the amendment to the base resolution? Hearing and seeing none. Ms. Snyder, a roll call vote, please.
Lipton,
No?
McMillan?
Yes.
Pritchett?
No.
Pugh?
No.
Snyder?
Yes.
Strayhorn?
No.
Tilley?
No.
Albridge?
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, any other discussion on the base resolution? Dr. Pugh.
To Board Member Tilley's point, my questions are, we single out the Upper Peninsula and the Lower Peninsula, and there have been major teacher shortage that preceded COVID and have definitely been exacerbated during COVID. And Benton Harbor, Detroit, Flint, Saginaw. And I'm just wondering why we singled out like these areas.
Right, so the vast majority of these recommendations will affect the entire state. Every single one of them, save one of these recommendations. There's a single recommendation that is focused on a single part of the geography up north, because that single part of the state has largely a single entity providing teachers for it. And so you've got the entire expanse of the Upper Peninsula, a good portion of the northern lower, largely being served by Northern Michigan University. Michigan Tech has paused its program. Finlandia has closed its program. Lake State has a diminished program, a program that it's trying to re-energize and revivify. We have a lot of respect for these individuals. They need more than a one-legged stool up north. They need more in terms of teacher preparation. The issue down in the vast majority of the state is not the number of institutions providing teacher preparation services, but rather the number of young people going through those programs and the number of young people staying in the profession once they choose to go into the profession. So we offer these recommendations. All but one of them are without geographical basis. The one is associated with geography.
Okay, so then my other thought is I am considering, to Tom and Nikki's point and to Cassandra's point, considering, how do we work into this resolution, and to our teacher's point, in this resolution, protections for teachers, and the students, that I know that they're even more concerned when we have such a small percentage of students that are vaccinated. And when we say vaccinated, what do we mean? With Omicron, there are people who may not think it's a bad thing, but if you only have 2 vaccines versus the booster, it may be something and the data shows that. There are teachers who can't separate themselves like other people when it comes to masking. They're around students who are not masked, and other students are around students who are not masked. And the data shows that that is a formula for a quick spread of COVID. And it also shows that in those school systems, we are seeing educators that are not able to show up because they are ill. They have family members that are ill, but we also have, they are also concerned about the children. So I guess, as I see it, and as I know it, it's not teachers waiting to leave. There are teachers that are leaving. We don't have substitutes, to the point that here in Michigan, we've just passed a law where the lunch person, the bus driver, the secretary can teach our kids. And so how do we address that if we have people who may have a problem with passing a resolution that simply asks for statute to be invoked, for mask to be worn? All medical professionals of some credibility say that masks should be in place and should be worn. Last data that I saw, only 35% of school districts wore masks. So how do we make sure that we know that we are letting our educators know that while they're waiting on the money to come, which it should come, but while they're waiting on it, they're not going to lose their life, their kids aren't going to lose their life, there won't be hospitalizations, there won't be children orphaned. Their children won't be orphaned? How do we build those protections, or build that into this resolution? And I'm saying that because we're not tying the resolutions together. We've made that very clear. And we don't know how people will vote. And I'm very concerned how people will vote. So I'm asking that question and would like to add language if we're concerned with how we're going to vote on resolutions that protect children, protect teachers, by simply asking for masks, simply asking for procedures like testing to stay, testing for kids to come back to school. There's support, just expressing support for OSHA regulations. So that's a question that I guess I pose, and I guess I could pose it in the form of an amendment if that's what I need to do.
If you have an amendment, we're happy to consider it. While Dr. Pugh is reflecting upon a potential amendment, are there any other comments on the, yes, please.
On the base resolution, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are some things in this resolution that I believe are contributing to some teachers leaving. The mandating of annual evaluations top down. I mean, I know districts can have their own evaluations, and they rightly should, but Governor Granholm, Democrat, signed into law based on the money that was President Obama's administration was enticing. We didn't get that money, but in order to be in the running, you had to support certain laws that Granholm did sign in regarding annual evaluations tied to state standardized testing, very top-down, which I opposed and fought vigorously in the legislature. So I do agree with that. As I mentioned before, I think the mandating of educators pay a greater share of their health insurance and retirement costs is not necessarily true. I think there's a significantly large amount of teachers that are paying less because what you saw before the legislation was a lot of overinsuring that was going on, and so it gave them the options to adequately insure, which brought their costs down. I'm not sure, I'm not going to ask for the data on the last in the nation inflation-adjusted total revenue growth. I will say that a lot of that, is due to, in the 90s, the very dark Granholm decade that really plunged our state into disrepair, and our revenues did, in fact, tank. And so I think a large portion of that is due to those years that we would like to forget. And then, as I mentioned, the fifth paragraph, the 300 to 500 million, there's money. There's plenty of money. I mean, we just got over $5 billion given to us. If this was that important, then significant amounts would have been sent to that. Instead, as I exposed, there was a significant portion going to CRT and getting kids indoctrinated into a Marxist ideology, among other things. And so, there's a lot of problems with this resolution. There's a few things that I agree with. I don't know. I do think that the other side of the aisle might have been responsible for a good portion of that, unfortunately. So I'll be voting against this resolution.
Fair enough. Ms. Snyder, Dr. Albrecht, Dr. Pritchett.
So I'll speak to the base resolution. I'm going to sidestep from the political science we're focusing on here. Back to the issue of teacher shortage being a very real issue. And I understand that and respect that. And I'm not hoping we can find our way through it. So with that said, the very middle paragraph, 1, 2, 3, I think it's 4. There are good ideas in this paragraph, and I think that needs to be acknowledged. I would like to stay focused for the students' sake on things like scholarships and tuition reimbursement. I do want to say out loud that we're finding things where loan repayment seems to be a real pain in the butt for students to chase after and almost impossible for them to gain access to on many levels. I think we're seeing a lot of students after they've graduated from school sharing that story. And it's really a shame because by the time they get to that space and they're trying to figure out the loan repayment process, they're trying to have kids, they're buying houses, they're moving on with their life, they're trying to work their job. There's less and less time in the day to get mired in the muck of loan repayment. Not that it isn't an option, but just to speak up on behalf of students in general and having gone through that process as well. I think scholarship and tuition reimbursement in and of itself are better approaches. I would also call to the concept, which sort of relates to what I'm hoping to say next, that administrative costs are so high in our public schools right now. It's shocking. I saw somewhere in one of our school districts in the state of Michigan, when you include benefits and pay, and I'd have to pull it back up, they're making almost $350,000 a year as a superintendent of a school. You have to think about that when you think about things like you're talking about with teachers who can't even afford to be a teacher and live where their district is. So we do have to consider the concepts of administrative costs as well. But as far as the resolution on the whole, we've already addressed Tom's amendments. I would put it on the table, make a motion to strike paragraphs 2 and 5. And I would like to discuss that further.
Support.
Okay, so we have a motion to strike 2 and 5. We have a second. Is there any further discussion thereof?
Yes. So as far as the amendment itself to strike paragraph 2, Tom and I have shared, look, We don't want to politicize this issue if we want to come together and acknowledge it as an issue on the whole and as something that our body wants to put out there for further discussion within the legislature and in areas that have the power to make moves and do things that we don't. And clearly we've debated how we got here, who's responsible for it, the concept of blame and accuse it. I just think strike that paragraph, and maybe I should have separated the two, but to move to discussion on the fifth paragraph, I'm not comfortable with stating, okay, we know this is a problem. We know that it will need to be addressed. We understand money includes addressing problems. But $300 million to $500 million, those are two very different numbers. And when you're signing a resolution that relates to that, for someone from my perspective and from our position, I feel like we need to understand what goes into that number, okay? $200 million difference, 300 to 500, what are we putting that in? And I guess I relate it to, other people who pitch projects or in any other industry. They don't come and say, I want this much money without saying, here's how it breaks down. Here's a spreadsheet of how it works out. So, to ask us in this arbitrary way, again, we know money is involved in solutions and solving problems. We're not saying that. But those are big numbers without more information.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Snyder. Just a point of clarification. We appreciate the fact that you are supportive of tuition reimbursement and scholarships. Those are helpful to people who are considering the profession. They are less helpful to people like Ms. Porter and Mr. Paul who are already in the profession and who have already graduated from school and for whom scholarships and tuition reimbursement are not relevant, but for whom loan reimbursement might be relevant. So I share that, number one. Number two, relative to the funding, there's an extensive analysis of what is necessary by category, which we've shared with the state legislature, which we've shared with the state board. We offer a menu of opportunities, and depending upon which of those opportunities, which of those critical investment options the legislature takes up, there will be more or fewer costs associated therewith. We represent it as a menu, and we make clear that it's a menu by giving a range rather than a point estimate associated with those elements. To Mr. McMillan's point about the citation of 50th of 50, Michigan is 50th of 50, or was 50th of 50 from 1995 to 2015 in total revenue growth, inflation adjusted. That's an MSU study from 2018. 6 studies in 6 years, beginning in 2015 through 2020, said the same thing. Different children have different costs, and those costs need to be funded. The needs of different children need to be funded, and we underfund public education in the state of Michigan. That's what 6 studies in 6 years have shown, including one that was voted on and approved by the state legislature in 2014 in the lame duck session. And ultimately that study would come out in the summer of 2016, including a study by the lieutenant governor in 2017 about special education costs, which indicated that special education costs were underfunded by approximately $750 million in the state of Michigan. So this is well-trodden territory about the underfunding of public education in the state of Michigan. It's not simply underfunding of teachers, although it is. It's also underfunding of support staff and supports for children and the like. And the cumulative effect of that over a 20-year period of time has chipped away at and denigrated the profession. It has made it a less desirable profession to enter and a less desirable profession in which to stay. It's not simply my opinion, although it is my opinion. It's the opinion of teachers across the state. It's been regularly shown survey after survey after survey after survey. And teachers lead with the funding is inadequate. And it's nowhere more inadequate than the funding associated with our young teachers, our beginning teachers. So I just wanted to clarify that the citation didn't come from thin air. It's a legitimate citation. It's one of 6 in 6 years that have said the same thing. Would anyone else care to speak to Ms. Snyder's amendment to the base resolution, which is on the table?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, in response to what you were just saying, we know that statistics can be twisted to say what one wants. During that decade of 95 to, or 2 decades to 2015, it'd be interesting to know what the public school student population, what happened during those years. It likely could very well have gone down, especially compared to the nation and other states, as a lot of people flocked out of Michigan during the Granholm years, and a lot of people have gone towards homeschooling or private schooling as the public education has become further politicized. So, I mean, that needs to be taken into consideration. I still, on both of these, including the 300 to 500 million, I'd love to hear, and I don't think we'll ever hear about it, what happened to the $5.5 billion that came into the state or that is coming into the state over a few years? Where has that been spent? We're talking about 10% of that could have gone to, would equal as $500 million. So apparently, that has not been a priority, teacher shortage, among that $5.5 billion. So there could be a lot more than just superficial statistics. A lot of times they need to be put into context, is all I'm saying. Thank you.
Right. So just a note, because I do think it's important to be clear about statistics, the same study from 2018, because enrollment has declined in the state of Michigan, as you well know, Mr. McMillan, the same study noted that we were 48th of 50 in per pupil revenue growth, inflation adjusted, from that period from 1995 to 2015. So even if you reflect upon revenue growth on a per pupil basis for the same 20-year period of time, we're still near the very bottom in the nation. We underfunded public schools during that 20-year period of time, and unfortunately, it adversely affected what we were able to provide for our young people. President Albrecht.
Just to answer that question, so pupil growth, pupil enrollment actually was growing from fiscal year 95 to fiscal year 2003. And then it began to decline from then and has been declining ever since. So basically it's a hill that we're looking at. So it was both growing at one point during that time frame and then declining at another. But I will, if we want to add, to inefficiencies in Michigan, I would also say that at the same time we were declining student enrollment, we were adding hundreds of new charter schools. And if we want to talk about administrative costs, no administrative costs are larger than those in charter schools because so much of the money goes into management contracts and things like that. So you are absolutely right. There's a lot of inefficiencies that we could be talking about. But again, right now we're focusing on teacher shortage in crisis time at the moment. And so I personally, I don't support eliminating language, but this is a board decision, and we'll go with what the board wants.
So we have a motion on the table to amend. We have a second. Mr. McMillan.
Well, I mean, just to reply, I mean, we know that charter schools can't do property millages. We know that they are significantly less funded than public schools. And we know that during that period of time, there was a lot of people in the state that suffered a lot worse revenue reductions than government workers did. But I mixed those two. But yeah, charter schools are, I would say that there's a lot more per pupil that goes to administrative costs in non-charter schools than charter schools.
Well, on a per pupil basis, that's not accurate.
Well, if you add in property millages and the fact that they get a lot less than most public schools.
Okay. Ms. Snyder, you get the benediction on this, on your amendment, and then we are going to vote on the amendment. Okay, very good. Hearing no other discussion, Ms. Snyder, a roll call vote on Ms. Snyder's amendment, please.
Lipton?
No.
McMillan?
Yes.
Pritchett?
No.
Pugh?
No.
Snyder,
Yes.
Strayhorn,
No.
Tilly,
No.
Albridge,
No.
motion fails.
The base amendment, the base resolution is before us. Are there any other recommendations for amendments thereto? Here, Dr. Pugh.
So this would be right before the last whereas. I would like to, or would like to move to have the statement, whereas the State Board of Education has introduced a resolution for a layered public health approach to keeping schools open during a pandemic that will provide health protections for teachers, for educators, and students.
Okay, that's fine, I appreciate that. So you've moved the resolution, if we, or moved the amendment, I beg your pardon, if we could have a second there too?
I'm sorry, just a clarification. Whereas the State Board of Education has introduced, we haven't introduced. That's not accurate.
Well, will. Let's change that word.
We don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, we sure don't, do we? So it needs to be here. So whereas the State Board of Education will introduce a resolution for a layered public health approach to keep schools open that will provide health protections for educators and students.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table relative to a later resolution. Do we have a second associated therewith?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Dr. Pugh, to you for discussion.
Again, I think I've said, I don't see how we sit at a table and the world is going on around us. Virginia, who was dead set against, or so they say, that people, I guess the people who were loudest and most violent were dead set against mask or whatever mandates. They've just declared a state of emergency. We have other professions. We don't even have to look, we can definitely look to educators, but we can look to police, airlines, hospitals that are being impacted by not being able to be protected from COVID. And we have over 60% of our schools that don't have a mask mandate, something as simple as a mask. They're not asking for children to be tested to come back to school. We don't know if children are, parents are telling me that they don't know when their children are exposed. We have people right here, right now, that are separating themselves from people who are unmasked. Our children and our teachers can't do that. They need those protections. And we have a resolution that will be introduced that would add, we don't have to add too much more language to this if we're able to just add that language to this amended to the proposed resolution.
Okay, President Albridge. Thank you, Dr. Pugh. President Albridge.
I completely understand wanting to add as much as possible to this, but I would request that we keep the resolutions separate and we not tie bar them, because we don't know what the end resolution, the next resolution is going to look like, or whether it'll even be supported and or what the end result might look like. So I would ask that we not tie bar resolutions together.
Okay. Any other reflections from state board members before we vote on the amendment to the base resolution? Dr. Pugh, Ms. Snyder.
If that's the case, then maybe we should table the resolution until after the other resolution is voted on. Because
Okay,
I would like to know that we're considering protections for teachers, and I would want to amend something different if we don't.
Are you withdrawing your motion?
No.
Okay, you are not withdrawing your motion.
I'm not withdrawing my motion.
If you're not withdrawing the motion, then we will be voting on the motion. Ms. Snyder, to you for your comment.
Just to speak to the amendment, which relates to Tom's previous amendment, which is the foundation that the pandemic, that the teacher shortage is in due part of the pandemic, which is in a future resolution. We won't discuss that right now. But to speak to it, I know teachers right here in town. Someone told me just a story last week. They said, I have Crohn's disease. I know that if I get this vaccine, I could end up hospitalized. It's happened before. But I'm so sick of this nonsense that I'm just going to do it. So we're talking about protections for teachers so that they can stay at work and continue to serve children, which is what they want to be doing without all of this politicization. But here we are. And this particular teacher just went ahead and got the vaccination, knowing that if we really bark up the tree that we're going down, which is mandated vaccines annually, which is what we had in hospitals, they were reimbursed by CMS, 90% plus of mandated vaccine rates for nurses and healthcare professionals was a regulated thing that they did through CMS with hospitals. Yet we have these people who have autoimmune illnesses, and to protect them, we have said that we should not do that from a physician's point of view until now. And these people know that. They've experienced it. They live with their autoimmune illness every day. They understand that maybe it's not the best time this year or ever for them to get a vaccination for the flu or for COVID. And they know they have to really consider risk-benefit conversation with their doctor, with themselves, if it's any other type of vaccination or medication. So we've got this concept of protection of teachers on the table in relationship to teacher shortage, and yet we continue to completely dismiss and ignore those perspectives. It is harmful to teachers to dismiss this perspective. It is harmful to students who have the same situation to dismiss this perspective. It's harmful for them in the short term, it's harmful for them in the long term, and it makes absolutely zero sense to not consider it when we consider the teacher shortage. Whether it's within this resolution, the next resolution, or the next, doesn't matter. So we voted Tom's down. I don't know where we're at with yours. We'll vote to it, but it has to be said because there are teachers out there that cannot get the vaccine, that should not be recommended that they get it.
We have a motion on the table from Dr. Pugh, seconded by Ms. Lipton. I'm sorry, Dr. Pugh, you would like to speak more to it? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Please.
and when I was saying the amendment, table till, that was to Cassandra's point. And then to Nikki's point, right, some people won't get the vaccine and won't be able to get the vaccine. And so OSHA also calls for testing of people who do not get the vaccine. So that, to me, would address that issue.
Okay, so we have an amendment on the table from Dr. Pugh, seconded by Ms. Lipton, to link to a later resolution. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, Dr. Pritchett, please.
I just want to say regarding the amendment, I can't support that because I believe that this particular resolution is focused on where we need to focus it on. Pragmatically, we need to provide some programs, some reimbursements, all of the things outlined here, and request some funding from the legislature in order to do that, to alleviate the teacher shortage. I am not discounting, would I ever discount the safety and welfare of our teaching staff, of all staff in schools, not only teachers, but paraprofessionals, the food service staff, et cetera. But I don't think it's appropriate to put it in this resolution. I think this resolution is targeted. To Tiffany's comment earlier, this shortage has been going on for several years. We saw the tsunami coming. It has gotten worse. Has the pandemic added to it? Absolutely. Absolutely. Anything would have added to it at this point, anything adversely. So I just wanted that clear.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pritchett. Anyone else care to share? If not, it is on, I'm sorry, Dr. Pugh.
I just want to respond to Dr. Pritchett, and that is, there are people who don't think that there's a need for equitable and even public health approaches across the state for our teachers or our children. And I'm so far against that, and I'm so concerned because we're not talking about teachers that are thinking about leaving. There are teachers who are leaving. There are teachers who are ill. There are schools that are not in today because there's a teacher shortage. And some of these things that we're talking about, it's going to take some time. They are necessary, they are urgent, and we need to have them. Everything that's in here. But while we're waiting, there are teachers who are not showing up and may not show up because of some simple, very simple things that people have no idea Michigan does not have in place, that are not in place, that I'm talking about. So I will put that out there, and I've done all that I can do to protect our teachers.
Fair enough. So I just want, because it is confusing, I keep reiterating so people know what they're voting on, because it is complicated. So we have a motion on the table from Dr. Pugh, seconded by Ms. Lipton, to add a portion to link to a later resolution. Hearing no other discussion, Marilyn, if you would be kind enough to do a roll call vote.
Lipton?
Yes.
McMillan?
No.
Pritchett?
No.
Pugh?
Yes.
Snyder?
No.
Strayhorn?
Yes.
Tilly?
No.
Albridge?
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, so we have the base resolution before us. Mr. McMillan.
One last thing, I just was texted or got information about, I guess Superintendent Vitti in Detroit had done a PowerPoint for the reopening agreement with DFT, and it indicates that they had class size reductions within the agreement of about 15% or 20%. So that certainly would mean that you'd need 15% or 20% more teachers, which would certainly cause issues in teacher shortage. So that also, and I'm told that it's not just in Detroit, there are other large districts that had such negotiations with their teachers union. So those type of negotiations could have also be contributing to the shortage or perceived shortage.
Fair enough, thank you. Anything else on the base resolution? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Just a quick query. Is there anyone who would like to offer public comment on this specific item before the vote? Hearing and seeing none.
Are you opening that up for the people?
I'm opening it up for the
person.
people, right? I'm opening it up for the people who are listening. I mean, I don't know how to open it up for people who aren't.
Dr. Rice?
Yes.
Am I allowed with that request?
Please. So this is, just a note, this is Mr. Brian Paul, one of our regional teachers of the year, one of the individuals whose presentation has been postponed until next month. Mr. Paul.
I know in governing bodies like this, we have to look at macro level decisions and how they affect the state. So I'm only going to offer you one anecdotal, because sometimes that helps with perspective. You go anywhere into a grocery store and people will have different opinions on COVID and masks. It's permeated your discussions here today, and I can tell that. What I'd like to offer is this with regards to what we have to do here, and that's taking care of the students. Doesn't matter what I think about COVID or masks, all due respect. It doesn't matter what you all think about COVID or masks, and I don't say that lightly. This is the reason why I say it. It matters what the parents of the students think about COVID and masks mandates. This is the reason why. Yesterday, I lost 40% of my class. 40% of my class was not present for schooling yesterday. The same with another colleague that I teach in 3rd grade. Why? I can't tell you exactly why, Some called in for sickness. Some could be parents just retaining their children at home because of what they feel. Regardless, the child is absent from the educational system, okay? I thought about a lot of what Dr. Pugh was stating, and this is just as you have your other discussions down the road with the other resolution, about the safety of the teachers. Our district today, with the decision made yesterday, is going remote for our middle school and high school, just like that. So I tried to simulate that for you. Take your afternoon discussions, go online. Will you have all your notes with you? Will you be able to talk as comfortably as you would like to talk, as you are able to right now in person? You have to flip like that and go online. You have to be able to do that. Why? The teachers don't have a choice. It's the decision made by the upper echelon because of the safety protocols. Why? There's simply not enough staff, not just teachers, bus drivers as well, to support the functioning of the middle and high school. So you have to be ready like that. Even though 40% of my class was absent yesterday, 2 students returned who were gone the whole week previously. Somehow I have to balance that. The gaps in education they received from not being there last week and the 40% absent yesterday. It's very messy. So it doesn't matter as much what we think. It's how the parents perceive and if they're going to have the students present or not.
Thank you,
Just
Mr.
offer
Paul.
that to you as an anecdote and I'll stop.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paul. Ms. Snyder, roll call vote, please. It's
Lipton?
on the base, it's on the base resolution. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Somebody's confused as to how they're looking at this, and they don't know how they give public participation.
Public comment at 1?
Yeah, but Dr. Rice just asked if people
know.
wanted to give.
Right, so this is, I mean, we're set up for public participation at 1 remotely. We're set up for public participation both remotely and in person now. Is that correct or not?
Well, they said that they haven't. This person says, how do I comment on this part? Please advise, exclamation point, exclamation point. I said, yes, you can. They said, how do I do it? I haven't received anything yet, so how do I get in? Question mark, question mark.
Can I talk?
Please.
Public participation for this month, yesterday at midnight, we had several hundred emails, but people that had registered and provided the required information, a name, location, their city, and the phone number they'd be calling from. At midnight last night, we had 163 people that were properly registered. We're asking for patience. I know there are people that can't get through.
All right.
That's the situation we're in.
Okay, very good. So, I'm sorry, do you have public participation? Yes, please.
I wasn't planning until like 1 o'clock, but.
Please. Is it regarding this resolution?
It is regarding masks.
It is, this resolution is on teacher shortage and teacher shortage recommendations.
Okay, so then no.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. Thank you. Yep. Any other, yes, ma'am.
I do. I have it on both for 1 o'clock and now. On the teacher shortage, as a teacher of past for 31 years, talking to other teachers, I affirm what this gentleman had said about parents and teachers. The reason the shortage is many parents are thinking of alternative education, etc., because the state and the local school boards aren't listening to what they're saying. They're tired of it. Going to some of the other schools that don't mandate masks or other stuff that you're mandating, they have a high performance and less cases. So I'm saying that parents are saying they're pulling their kids out of school for different things. As I was at the meeting that Mr. McCollum was at, because of what they're mandating. It is teaching the kids the totalness of who they are. And so teachers, as a teacher, when I look at teachers coming out of education, they also feel they don't have a lot to say about it. And the support, you have to have a community of educators, community of the parents with the kids' wholeness being considered. Their intelligence, their social, their spiritual, their total well-being. And I'm going to tell you, parents are tired.
Are you timing this?
They're tired of putting money where it's not being used where they think they're supposed to be. Teachers are getting tired.
Ms., let me ask you a question. If you could clarify your name, please, for us. Are you Ms. Wood?
Sorry. I'm Bonnie Wood, and I live in Ovid, Michigan, but my kids went to, and I'm in Shiawassee County, and my kids went to Ovid Else in Clinton County. And I have been in lots of positions as a teacher, unions and et cetera, but I'm saying teachers are feeling overwhelmed, and they want to help the parents out, but they also want to do other things. And then they have their own personal commitments. Yes, teachers are going to charter schools. They're going to other places to teach where they can teach.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. We appreciate it. Marilyn, roll call vote, please.
I'm still having issues. I have another person who's called saying that they want to give public comment and they cannot. I think that that's an issue.
I think you were supposed to get it by 9:30 a.m., right? Aren't those the rules?
The normal rules under normal circumstances are by the beginning of public participation on the day of the meeting, which is 1 p.m.
It was 10:30. Okay.
My point is that my personal opinion is we're not under normal circumstances.
We've already got a few hundred people who have signed up to provide public comment at 1 p.m.
So we apologize.
But
Yes, we have a vote to call the question. Do I have a second to call the question? Dr. Pritchett is the second to Ms. Lipton's call the question motion. If we could have a vote on calling the question. Roll call vote.
Lipton?
Yes.
McMillan?
No.
Pritchett?
Yes.
Pugh?
abstain.
Snyder?
Abstain.
Strayhorn?
Yes.
Tilly?
Yes.
Albridge?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, if we could now have a vote on the base resolution.
Lipton?
Yes.
McMillan?
No.
Pritchett?
Yes.
Pugh?
Abstain.
Snyder?
Abstain.
Strayhorn?
Yes.
Tilly?
Yes.
Albridge?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Two to
Thank you.
one.
Thank you very much.
I have a question because people are
Yes.
texting me.
Please.
And I guess I don't understand. So people are not going to be able to public participate, period, if they haven't signed up yet?
They
Is that
can
what we're
sign
saying?
up for 1 o'clock, yeah. They can go onto the website.
I mean, they have, but they haven't received phone numbers, so they couldn't call in. That's what they're saying. It's people who are telling me that they are trying to get in, but they don't have a number.
There are 344 emails at that site since midnight. So there was probably that many yesterday.
So
I'm
sorry.
Still open right now, though, for people to,
It
because you
is-
said
it
it's
is-
up until.
It is in theory still open, yes. It is in theory still open. It does prompt the question, what the board is going to do with this volume of public
But
comment.
can I get my question answered?
Please, yes.
Because these are people who did email, and I get it, Marilyn, I understand. I just need to be able to respond to them, because they're asking, they were trying to get in, but they don't have a phone number. I had already email or the phone number. And so I'm getting emails that people have not gotten the phone number. And so now during this conversation, I'm hearing that they very well may not.
This is something to consider for future public participation.
Can just for those that are at home, whether you can get in or not, I just want to reiterate, our email addresses are online, and you notice we have computers in front of us. That's because people are emailing us constantly with their public comments, and we are looking at those during the meeting as well. So if you don't want to hold online, you are more than welcome to send an email, and it will be seen by the board members.
And not in time for me to vote, because I don't know if you all have, but I've gotten I've gotten like 30 emails per minute on a personal email address and my .gov email address, so I won't get through all of those by the time we meet, and that's been between 8 o'clock yesterday morning, so I understand what
Similar
you're saying.
concern. You're living it.
But we got a problem because people want to participate, and they wanted to participate prior to that last vote, and they did follow the directions, which said by 1 p.m. get their self signed up, and they were already emailing saying that they hadn't received an email yet giving us the phone number. So I just want to, and they wanted to public comment prior to the last vote and prior to the next votes.
So the board's bylaws indicate a 1-hour limit to public comment. The board's bylaws also note that the board may extend that period for public comment. That's at the board's discretion. You have a bylaw that says a 60-minute limit. You also have a bylaw that says that you may extend beyond that 60-minute limit to the extent that you would like. So it's going to be up to the board over the next few hours as to what it wants to do with respect to public comment. So that's the answer for the minute. Any other questions? Ladies, thank you so much for your presentation. We apologize for holding you up. The next item on the Committee of the Whole agenda is presentation on supply chain impact on school food service. This is a presentation of information on the supply chain impact on school food service. It is an informational presentation, and no board action is required. Presenters are Mr. Kyle Garant, Deputy Superintendent of Finance and Operations, Dr. Diane Golzinski, Director of Health and Nutrition Services, Ms. Nancy LaFave, Food Service Director of the Escanaba Public Schools. I think she gets the award for the longest commute to the board meeting. And Mr. Carl Williams, Executive Director, the Office of School Nutrition, Detroit Public Schools Community District. This is indeed an esteemed group. Carl Williams received the Director of the Year award from the School Nutrition Association of Michigan in November at the SNAM Annual Conference. Mr. Williams, welcome. And congratulations. Ms. Nancy LaFave is President of Michigan's largest purchasing cooperative, the Great Lakes Consortium. She was also Michigan's first School Breakfast Hero awardee from No Kid Hungry. Ms. LaFave, welcome, and congratulations to you. Dr. Diane Golzinski is past president of the School Nutrition Association of Michigan and past president of the Association of State Public Health Nutritionists. That's a mouthful, Dr. Golzinski. And she is an enormous force in her own right and a terrific leader. And of course, Kyle Garant, our erstwhile Deputy Superintendent for Finance and Operations, batting cleanup in this outstanding group of presenters. Presenters, welcome. Thank you so much for making time out of your busy days for us.
Thank you, Dr. Rice and Board, for the opportunity to present today. The only certainty during this pandemic has been uncertainty, and school food service programs and professionals have worked diligently to serve meals to students throughout the pandemic. Today, we will share supply chain shortages that are impacting districts' ability to provide meals to students, and what districts and food service professionals like the ones we are so graciously have with us today are doing to mitigate those impacts. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Wilzinski.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. Typically, I am here for the side of my world that is health and safety programs, and so I'm excited today to talk more about our food service programs. Thank you. Our office is responsible for all of the USDA food and nutrition programs except for the Women, Infants, and Children program known as WIC, and SNAP, which is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, formerly known as food stamps. Both SNAP and WIC are housed at the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. That leaves our office, OHNS, responsible for the federal school lunches and breakfasts, childcare meals, meals in the dependent adult care setting, and after-school and summer meals. While these meals are federally regulated, Michigan does have 2 state laws that require all public schools to serve lunch, and most of our public schools must serve breakfast. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, USDA released a number of nationwide waivers in order to facilitate assuring children had access to meals regardless of where they were learning. On this slide, you can see that as a result of the waivers, we implemented various versions of the summer food service program from March of 2020 through August of 2021. Since August of 2021, we have returned closer to the traditional national school lunch and breakfast programs. Michigan has chosen to participate in all of the waivers offered nationally. This includes the ability to continue to provide meals to all children free of charge. When children are not physically in school, our schools may provide pickup meals for up to 7 days at one pickup time and location. And for this school year only, as a result of the severe supply chain challenges, we are also able to reimburse meals at the highest reimbursement rate available and reimburse meals that may not meet the full meal pattern requirements as long as the school has an approved meal pattern waiver on file with MDE. Nationally, school food service has seen challenges at every level of the supply chain for nearly every product that they order. School food service directors are dealing with products not being in stock in the quantities needed to feed the thousands of children that they need to feed for both breakfast and lunch in a single day. Paper products are in short supply, so directors are being forced to serve only finger foods. And where possible, they are returning to reusable trays and flatware. The challenge is that not all schools have dishwashers to clean those reusable trays and flatware, or the staff to run the dishwashers. The other challenge is that manufacturers have discontinued many school-specific menu items during the pandemic. Where a chicken manufacturer may have made 30 varieties of chicken products prior to the pandemic, now they may only be making 3. Making matters worse is the labor shortage. We've been talking about teacher shortage, and I want you to know that there is a shortage at every level of our supply chain. I've been at MDE for nearly 10 years, and I've never seen the number of new school food service directors as I have this year, as a result of retirements and many leaving the profession due to the intense challenges realized during the pandemic. In some places, these essential workers have received small pay raises or bonuses, but in many cases, district administration or unions have not allowed funds to be spent, even if they have the funds to do so. So what I have for us today are 2 guests who are going to talk about what it's like to try to serve the children now during these challenges. First is Nancy.
Thank you for having me. Being the chair for the Great Lakes Consortia, which, like Diane said, is the largest consortia in Michigan, that is how we get our USDA foods, through the consortia. And so I spend a lot of time on the phone with manufacturers. I spend a lot of time on the phone with our distributor, which for myself is Gordon Food Service. And we all have a lot of things in common, and labor shortage is the first, price increase is the second, raw material to make products is the third. Our distributors alone, since the beginning of the school year, has seen 77 price increases mid-contract. Beef is up about 20%, eggs is up 20%, ham and turkey about 12% just since the beginning of the school year. And of course, as you know, that trickles down to the school districts. A lot of schools are worried that the recipes that they've come up with, the standards that they've set for their school programs, they're going to have to start using subpar ingredients because they can't afford the price increase on some of the other items that they're used to using. Because manufacturers have labor issues, they, like Diane said, chicken products, they might have had 30, could be down to 3 or 4, but we're also dealing with them providing commercial and to restaurants and stores. So that same manufacturer is trying to produce for the refrigerators at Meijer. They're trying to produce the school food chicken patty. And because of the price, the commercial usually wins out over the school. So we can't always have our products available because they are manufacturing for the commercial side of their business. And how that affects, like on a local level for myself, breakfast is a big issue. We do K through 12 breakfast in the classroom. Every teacher in every building feeds their kids after the bell. It's a great program for us. We started a couple years ago, but I had to train and rely on the teachers to make sure that the meal that those students are getting qualify for a reimbursable meal. And when I have to sub an item because we can't get white milk from our distributor because they had labor issues, they had a machine go down, we can't serve cereal that day, obviously. So we have to have something to substitute right away. And so not only does the kitchen staff, but my whole district literally needs to know and is affected by that change. At lunchtime, we have a central kitchen in Escanaba, which means everything is made at the high school and we ship it out. So we have come to like products that handle well, that ship out well, that hold, that the breading stays on. If we have to substitute those products, when we ship out, they're not always the best quality by the time the elementaries are eating. And we want that student who's the very last one in the kindergarten classroom to have the same quality of food as that high school student that ate 2 hours before. So that is another issue with subbing products. I have one district that told me they're the exact opposite. They got subbed restaurant quality chicken products, and so their kids loved it. And so now when we have the whole grain patty back available, they're wondering where that bar food was that they just had last week. So it's trying to balance out and make sure that you're serving the same thing every day so the students know what they're getting. The last thing that I really have is special diets. We have a lot of diabetic students in our district. When we are substituted products, that affects what those kids can eat. They have to know ahead of time at breakfast and at lunch so that they can get their carb counts, they can get their insulin. And when we're constantly subbing products for them, sometimes it's the last minute, it really affects their lives, literally. And paper products, you know, everyone that has to deal with styrofoam knows that they're low. So we become hoarders, which we don't like to do. But if there are school trays available and you can get 50 in, it's each man for himself at that point. You get 50 in, but we've had it down where I've had one case of school trays left in our district wondering, what am I going to do tomorrow? So it's all around from paper products to food, lunch, breakfast. It's affecting us in every way.
Thank you, Nancy. And it's the same in Detroit, correct?
Yes, yes. Is it okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Take this off. Okay. I apologize. And thank you for your time. I know this is very important. So I'm not a scripted guy, as my colleagues know, but I will read from my script so that I can respect your time. I am glad that you did mention the special needs special diet and special needs students, because for those students, consistency is so important. And if you change anything in their day, it just throws everything off for them. And that has been a huge impact. But I want to share with you a story so that you can kind of see what the life of a food service director is. So it's Wednesday in the middle of the month of October, and I'm conducting my periodic visit to schools. I'm pulled aside by a principal with a concerning look on her face. Mr. Williams, are you aware of our concern regarding the menu? She asks. We are a little tired of chicken, she tells me. Our menu over the last 6 days have been chicken tenders, chicken bites, barbecue chicken, oven roasted chicken, 3-piece chicken, baked chicken. And also we've had 4 different types of plates. And right now, my kitchen staff is in the back cutting in half to-go containers so they can make 2 plates out of 1. And she asked Mr. Williams, why in the middle of lunch every day, my staff is leaving my building to go to another school so that they can find product to finish feeding my kids.
So at that point, I stopped her and began my spiel on the domino effect of the disruption in the supply chain. Um, we're not getting the product that we need to stay compliant with our district posted menus, and the products that we are getting are very inconsistent. What we need is just not there, and it's not there when we need it. I have been forced to drastically reduce my menu offerings at every level. Prior to COVID, my K through 8 schools, we offered 4 to 5 different entree offerings daily. Now, we're offering 2 at most. 1 is more consistent. At the high school level, we were offering 9 different entree items every single day. Today, we're offering 3, but on a more consistent basis, 2. My students, they choose to eat with us based off that variety. And when that variety isn't there, they're choosing not to eat with us. At least once a week, myself or my assistant directors are using our vehicles to go store to store, trying to find product just to make it through the day. We find ourselves driving to our distributor's warehouse in Wixom to pick up our own food and milk because they have shortages in truck drivers and can't get the food delivered to us. Due to the labor shortage, the supply chain has, as I said, has a limited number of truck drivers. As I have read, there's a shortage of about 80,000 nationwide. And that has stalled our ability to receive product. As a large district, we coordinate with our food distributor on our menu needs 3 months in advance. In today's environment, we are still not able to receive the items we need with a 3-month notice to our suppliers. A closer note to staffing, which affects us more closely at home, is my staffing shortages. I started the year off with 165 kitchen staff vacancies. That's 25% of my staff missing. We have a dozen of schools with only 1 kitchen employee there to cook, serve, do the USDA required accountability, clean, sanitize for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and that's typically for a school of about 300 students. Since September, I have had the EMS rush to 2 of my kitchens to attend to medical emergencies from staff passing out from exhaustion, from being overworked, not having enough resources, and being asked to do more because of the additional COVID protocols. As I say, I'm not scripted. Prior to the challenges presented to us in COVID, our district of 50,000 students, we were serving 39,000 lunches daily and 29,000 breakfasts daily. Today, with fewer students in the building, my 39,000 lunches have gone down to 26,000. And my 29,000 breakfasts a day has gone down to 24,000. So that's a decrease of 30% in my lunches and 15% decrease in my breakfast. So basically, the supply chain domino effect has been, right now, I'm not feeding kids. And when I am feeding kids, I'm not able to give them the variety and the service that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. I'm sorry to backtrack, but I had brought this with me. It's a note from a student that I had received. Special education student asked her aide if she could write it out for her. And I don't know if everyone here knows what a Bosco stick is, but if the kids don't have Bosco sticks in school, they are not happy. And right now we have a substituted Bosco stick. So she wrote a note and gave it to the lunch lady and said, please bring back the old Boscos. The ones that we have now are really bad. Thank you if you take this into consideration from your favorite Kyra B. Or I'm starting a protest. So that's what's on their mind when they're eating. They're not enjoying, they're worrying about what else is out there. Thank you. Thank you both. So what's up next? What can we even do about this? Just prior to the December holidays, the USDA notified us at MDE that we will be receiving a little over $29 million in supply chain assistance funding. While we are thankful for this investment in our schools, it is still concerning that our child care centers, who have suffered so much throughout the pandemic and are suffering from the same supply chain challenges, will not have access to this assistance funding. These funds are also restricted to unprocessed or minimally processed foods only. So that means that our local farmers and producers will benefit, but things like Bosco sticks cannot be purchased. For school districts who do not wish to purchase these specific products or have an excess fund balance and more funds than they know what to do with, they have the option to decline the funds, and MDE will be able to reallocate those unspent funds to other districts at that time. So in closing, I'm sure you all have noticed the empty shelves at Meijer. I'm sure that you have experienced it in your own lives, in your own grocery shopping. Today, what we've been trying to do is help you to understand what that shortage looks like when it's multiplied by 100 for our local school districts. While none of us at this table can magically make these products appear for our school districts, just being kind to our school food service directors and understanding what they're going through would be an absolute step and an absolute benefit to these folks, because they work so hard every day, and I thank you for what you do to take care of our children. Thank you.
Board members, we appreciate that presentation. I thought the portion about the calls to EMS were particularly sobering. It's a fraught period of time. There's a lot of anxiety, and we appreciate the work that you do from Escanaba to Detroit and everywhere in between. Board members, are there any questions of our four outstanding presenters, the four horse people? I beg your pardon. Oh, hard to hear from a distance. Ms. Lipton.
Thank you, Dr. Rice, and thank you to our four presenters. I think that your presentation really centers the notion that for those among us who believe in schools as centers or hubs of a community, and believe that community schools can be so enriching in the lives of our children, the notion that food, the serving of food and the eating of food, can build tremendous bridges among students and create a community where a student can be prepared to learn, because we all know that a hungry child is not in its best place to receive the knowledge of our hardworking and dedicated teachers. So thank you so much for that. I have a very specific question. On the second to last slide, there is a specificity that the supply chain assistance funding for schools only, parens not childcare. And my question is, does that also include those school districts that provide school-based childcare in terms of Great Start, Great Readiness, or other school-based childcare, including aftercare programs?
That's a great question. The USDA has specified that we are allowed to send those funds to school districts only and not sponsors who only have childcare. So I can't send it to like a Happy Elephant type of childcare, but I could send it to an Escanaba
Did you understand my
Public Schools.
question?
Did she not hear me?
Can you hear us?
Could you hear us, Ms. Lipton? Ms. Lipton, are you able to hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, I don't
We
think
can
she
hear you. Can you hear us?
Okay, can you hear us now?
No, I cannot hear anyone,
Okay.
but I can now.
Okay.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Dr. Golzinski, back to you.
I'll try again. So the USDA has specified that I can send those funds to school districts only. Those school districts might have childcare programs in it, like a Great Start Readiness program, but I cannot send those funds to a childcare center only. So a Happy Elephant or a NEMSCA, which is up in northern Michigan, which has a number of childcare centers only, I cannot send those funds to them. I can only send those funds to school districts.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Golzinski, Ms. Lipton. Ms. Porter.
Ms. LaFave and Mr. Williams, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the work that you're doing, being in schools every day and watching my own food service staff in my district and the districts around me. I know how hard you've been working for the last several years, and listening to you talk about ensuring the quality of food and making sure of the variety of food. So many students, the only meals they get are the ones they're served at school. And when I was listening to you, it just continued to go home to me that anybody that is in the field of education, regardless of teacher, administration, every facet, does what they have to do to support kids and give them the best that we can. And in these trying circumstances, I just appreciate so much people like you that are doing that for your students. So I just wanted to share that personally because it just really touched me to hear how much you're working so hard to provide that for kids.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. Other reflections from state board members? Going once, going twice. Dr. Albrecht.
I just want to echo that. Thank you so much for what you're doing and for coming all the way to Lansing today to talk to us about the struggles that you guys are facing. I certainly hope that we can help in some manner alleviate some of this pressure that you're under, but you're doing a really important job and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to that, if I could add the notion that for many of our young people, their food is at school, and that's it. And no school, no eating or skinny eating, if eating at all. And I think that's important for people to understand that for a lot of administrators, the decision to have school or not in part turns on what happens with feeding. It's not simply a snow day call or an ice day call or a COVID number call. But it's also about young people who, but for school, would not eat. So this is basic, it's fundamental, it's critical. There's tremendous research that suggests that children's nutrition affects children's thinking, affects children's learning, affects children's subsequent opportunities in life. There's a lot of research that draws a line from what you do to children's outcomes. And it's easy to be dismissive of nutrition when you have plenty of good food. It's less easy to be dismissive of nutrition if you're not eating or you're not eating well. And so as someone who's spent my entire life in urban public schools, I appreciate what you're doing every single day because I saw the value of what you do every single day on my babies. And we just have more babies across the state for whom we are focused at the moment. So thank you very much. Thank you for your leadership. We appreciate it and we appreciate you. Board members, it is 12:06 and we are going to break for lunch. We will return at 1 p.m. to begin.